The bustling corridors of the Galactic Council chambers echoed with the chatter of various alien species, each representing their respective civilizations. Among them was Zara, a young Voxarian diplomat, whose vibrant azure skin and hovering form commanded attention. As she made her way to the central dais, she couldn't help but notice the peculiar behavior of the human representatives. Unlike the other delegates, who bustled about with an air of importance, the humans sat calmly, occasionally sipping from strange ceramic vessels and exchanging amicable smiles. Zara had heard tales of humanity's quaint customs, but the sheer nonchalance with which they carried themselves was puzzling, even for a seasoned diplomat like herself. As the session began, the High Counselor, a towering Thrixian named Xraxel, called the meeting to order. Greetings, esteemed representatives of the Galactic Council. Today, we have several critical matters to discuss, including the recent trade disputes and the ongoing territorial negotiations. Zara couldn't help but notice the humans exchange knowing glances as Xraxel droned on, their expressions unreadable. When it came time for the human delegation to present their updates, the lead representative, a man named Aiden, rose with a polite smile. Honored members of the Council, I'm pleased to report that our processing of the necessary paperwork for the trade agreements has been completed ahead of schedule. He paused, his gaze sweeping the room. Of course, we've taken great care to ensure that every regulation and protocol has been meticulously followed. Xraxel's brow ridge furrowed in confusion. Ah, yes, well, that is commendable. However, I must remind you that the expedited timelines were of great importance to several of our member species. Surely you can understand the need for efficiency in these matters. Hayden nodded thoughtfully. Absolutely, High Counselor. We humans value efficiency just as highly as you do. In fact, I believe we've developed some rather innovative techniques to streamline bureaucratic processes. He glanced around the room, his expression almost apologetic. Unfortunately, due to the complexity of the regulations, it appears that our efforts to expedite the paperwork may have inadvertently caused a few minor delays. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of protests, with various alien representatives voicing their concerns. Zara watched in bewilderment as the humans remained steadfast, their expressions calm and unperturbed. Unacceptable, bellowed a Grularian delegate, his 4 eyes glaring daggers at Aiden. The Council has made it abundantly clear that these trade agreements must be finalized without delay. Surely your species has the capacity to handle such simple tasks. Aiden raised a hand, silencing the outraged voices. I assure you, honored delegates, that we are doing our utmost to ensure the timely completion of all necessary procedures. However, as you know, the Galactic Council has developed a rather extensive set of rules and regulations over the centuries, and we humans, being the diligent and thorough beings that we are, feel compelled to follow each and every one of them to the letter. Zara watched in fascination as the humans, once seen as simplistic and easily managed, stood their ground with an unnerving calm. Xraxel's mandibles clicked in frustration, and the High Counselor leaned forward, his voice laced with a barely concealed edge. I must remind you, Aiden, that the Council expects results, not excuses. If your species is unable to meet the demands of our esteemed member civilizations, then perhaps it is time to reconsider your place within the Galactic Council. Aiden's expression remained serene, even in the face of Xraxel's thinly veiled threat. We understand your concerns, High Counselor. Rest assured, we will continue to do our utmost to ensure the timely completion of all required paperwork. Perhaps in the future, we could explore ways to streamline the bureaucratic processes to the benefit of all. The session descended into an increasingly heated debate, with the humans seemingly impervious to the mounting frustration of their alien counterparts. Zara couldn't help but wonder what was truly going on beneath the surface of this seemingly innocuous exchange. As the meeting drew to a close, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that the humans had orchestrated this entire scenario. There was a subtle confidence in their demeanor, a hint of something more profound than simple compliance. She resolved to keep a closer eye on the human delegation, for it seemed that their true capabilities had yet to be revealed. In the days following the tense council session, Zara observed the human delegation with renewed interest. Unlike the other representatives, who busied themselves with the usual political maneuvering and bureaucratic entanglements, the humans appeared remarkably calm and collected. Aiden, the lead human representative, became a particularly intriguing figure. Whenever Zara encountered him in the corridors, he would greet her with a warm smile and an effortless charm that belied the underlying tension in the council chambers. "Greetings, Zara," he would say, his tone friendly yet measured. "I hope you're finding your time with the council productive. Please, let me know if there's anything I can do to assist you." Zara found herself caught off guard by his polite demeanor, for it clashed with the growing perception of the humans as an uncooperative, even obstructionist, presence in the council's affairs. As the weeks passed, the human delegation's behavior continued to baffle the other representatives. While they dutifully attended every meeting, meticulously filing paperwork and adhering to protocols, their actions seemed to have a curious effect on the council's operations. Zara watched in fascination as simple tasks that would have once been completed in a matter of hours now stretched on for days, even weeks. Requests for information were met with lengthy explanations of regulations. Approvals were delayed by the need for additional signatures and verifications, and even emergency procedures seemed to grind to a halt under the weight of the humans' meticulous adherence to bureaucratic requirements. The other delegates grew increasingly frustrated, their tempers fraying as the efficient machinery of the Galactic Council began to sputter and stall. Xraxel, the High Counselor, became a near-constant presence in the human delegation's offices, his mandibles clicking in agitation as he demanded explanations for the mounting delays. "Explain to me again, Aiden, why it is taking 3 standard cycles to process a simple request for resource allocation." The Thrixian hissed, his towering form looming over the unperturbed human. Aiden regarded Xraxel with an expression of genuine concern. "High Counselor, I assure you that we are doing everything in our power to expedite the process. However, as you know, the regulations governing resource allocation are quite complex, and we must ensure that every protocol is followed to the letter." He paused, his brow furrowing slightly. "You know, I've been thinking about ways we might streamline these procedures, perhaps even implement some of the more efficient techniques we humans have developed over the centuries. But of course, any changes to the established protocols would require the full approval of the Council." Xraxel's eyes narrowed, and Zara could sense the growing unease among the other delegates who had gathered to witness the exchange. The High Counselor's next words were laced with barely concealed frustration. "The Council values efficiency, Aiden, but not at the expense of our established processes. Perhaps your species simply lacks the necessary sophistication to operate within our complex system of governance." Aiden's expression remained impassive, but Zara detected a glimmer of something in his eyes, a hint of amusement, perhaps, or even a touch of pity. "I understand your concerns, High Counselor. We humans are, after all, a relatively young species compared to many of the civilizations represented here. But I assure you, we are more than capable of navigating the intricacies of your bureaucracy. In fact, I dare say we've become quite skilled at it." The subtle emphasis on the word skilled sent a ripple of unease through the gathered delegates. Zara couldn't help but wonder if the humans were, in fact, playing a game that the rest of the council had yet to comprehend. As the confrontation drew to a close, Xraxel stormed out of the office, his frustration palpable. Zara lingered, her gaze locked with Aiden's, and for a moment she felt a chill run down her spine. "Tell me, Zara," Aiden said, his voice low and measured, "do you ever wonder why the humans are so diligent in their adherence to your protocols?" Zara hesitated, unsure of how to respond. I suppose I had assumed it was simply a matter of your species' cultural inclinations." Aiden smiled, but there was a razor's edge to it. "Perhaps. Or perhaps there's more to it than that. After all, we humans are a curious and adaptable species. Who's to say we haven't found innovative ways to navigate your systems?" With those parting words, Aiden turned and returned to his work, leaving Zara to ponder the unsettling implications of his statement. She knew in that moment that the humans were not the simple, easily managed creatures the Council had taken them for. There was a depth to their actions, a hidden layer of complexity that had yet to be fully revealed. Zara resolved to keep a closer eye on the human delegation, for she had a feeling that the true nature of their involvement in the Galactic Council was about to be exposed in a way that would shake the very foundations of the interstellar governance. As the weeks turned into months, the tension within the Galactic Council chambers continued to simmer, with the human delegation at the heart of the growing unrest. Zara observed their actions with a mix of fascination and trepidation, her initial curiosity blossoming into a deep sense of unease. The once efficient bureaucratic machinery of the Council had ground to a near halt, with every request, every proposal, and every emergency response mired in a seemingly endless web of protocols and procedures. The other delegates, once dismissive of the humans' apparent simplicity, now found themselves increasingly dependent on the very species they had once patronized. Aiden and his team continued to maintain their calm, polite demeanor, unfazed by the mounting frustration of their alien counterparts. Whenever a crisis arose, they would calmly explain the necessary steps to address the issue, citing regulation after regulation, until the other delegates were left reeling, their heads swimming with the sheer complexity of the Galactic Council's bureaucracy. But surely there must be a way to expedite this process. A desperate Grularian delegate pleaded during one particularly heated exchange. Aiden regarded the alien with a sympathetic expression. "I understand your concern, honored delegate. Unfortunately, the regulations governing emergency response protocols are quite extensive, and we humans must ensure that every requirement is met to the letter. Cutting corners, you see, could have unforeseen consequences." The Grularian's eyes narrowed, his 4 tentacles writhing in frustration. "Unforeseen consequences? What are you implying, human?" Aiden raised a placating hand. "Not at all, my friend. I merely mean to say that we must be diligent in our adherence to the rules, lest we risk disrupting the delicate balance of our interstellar operations. You understand, I'm sure." The Grularian opened his mouth to retort, but the words died on his lips as Aiden continued, his tone laced with a hint of something akin to pity. "After all, we wouldn't want to see any more unfortunate incidents, would we? The Council has worked so hard to maintain stability and order throughout the galaxy. It would be a shame to see all that progress undone by a simple procedural oversight." The implication hung in the air, thick and ominous, and Zara watched as the Grularian's resolve crumbled, his 4 eyes darting away in a clear display of submission. As the session drew to a close, Zara found herself drawn to Aiden's side, her curiosity finally overriding her sense of caution. "Tell me, Aiden," she began, her voice low and measured, "what is it that you and your people are truly after? Why go to such lengths to obstruct the Council's operations?" Aiden regarded her with an unreadable expression, his lips curving into a faint smile. "My dear Zara, we humans are not after anything more than what any species within the Council desires: stability, prosperity, and the continued advancement of our shared civilization." He paused, his gaze sweeping the room, taking in the frustrated faces of the other delegates. "However, we've come to understand that true progress cannot be achieved without a certain degree of diligence and attention to detail, and if that means slowing the gears of bureaucracy from time to time, well, then so be it." Zara felt a chill run down her spine. "You speak in riddles, Aiden. What are you and your people planning?" Aiden's smile widened, and for a moment, Zara could have sworn she saw a flash of something akin to triumph in his eyes. "Planning, my dear Zara? Why, we're not planning anything at all. We're simply doing what we believe is necessary to ensure the continued smooth functioning of the Galactic Council." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "After all, what good is progress if it's built upon a foundation of chaos and disorder?" Zara opened her mouth to respond, but Aiden had already turned away, rejoining his delegation and leaving her to ponder the unsettling implications of his words. As she watched the humans file out of the council chambers, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that she had only scratched the surface of a much deeper, more complex scheme. The humans, it seemed, were playing a game that the rest of the council had yet to comprehend, and the stakes were higher than anyone could have imagined. The tensions within the Galactic Council reached a fever pitch as the human delegation's stranglehold on the bureaucratic machinery continued to tighten. Zara observed the unfolding events with a mix of fascination and growing unease, her initial curiosity now tinged with a sense of foreboding. The once efficient council had become a labyrinth of red tape, with even the simplest tasks requiring a dizzying array of forms, approvals, and verifications. Aiden and his team maintained their calm, polite demeanor, deftly navigating the complex web of regulations they had somehow come to master. Raxel, the High Counselor, had long since abandoned his attempts at diplomacy, his towering form now a constant presence in the human delegation's offices. Zara could see the strain etched into the Phyrexian's features, his mandibles clicking in a barely restrained display of frustration. Explain to me once again why it is taking 3 standard cycles to process a request for emergency medical supplies, Thraxel growled, his eyes narrowed to slits. Aiden regarded the High Counselor with an infuriatingly calm expression. High Counselor, I assure you that we are doing everything in our power to expedite the process. However, as you know, the regulations governing the distribution of sensitive materials are quite extensive. We must ensure that every protocol is followed to the letter, lest we risk jeopardizing the safety and security of our fellow council members. Thraxel's claws flexed, and Zara could sense the growing unease among the other delegates who had gathered to witness the exchange. Safety and security, the Phyrexian hissed. You speak of such matters as if we are children, incapable of understanding the gravity of the situation. Perhaps it is time we reconsidered the value of your species' continued presence within the Galactic Council. Aiden's expression darkened, a hint of steel entering his voice. Reconsider our presence, High Counselor. I believe you will find that such a decision would have far-reaching consequences. The chamber fell silent, the tension palpable. Zara watched in fascination as the humans, once seen as harmless and easily managed, now stood their ground with an unwavering resolve. Thraxel's mandibles clicked, his eyes narrowing. Are you threatening us, human? Aiden raised a placating hand. Not at all, High Counselor. We merely wish to impress upon you the importance of maintaining a cooperative and productive relationship between our peoples. After all, we are all members of this esteemed council, are we not? The Phyrexian's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, a commotion erupted near the chamber's entrance. Zara turned to see a group of frantic-looking alien delegates, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and dismay. High Counselor, one of them, a Vosirian, cried out. The Galactic Communications Network has suffered a catastrophic failure. We're unable to contact any of our outer colonies or outposts. Thraxel's eyes widened, and Zara could see the panic rippling through the assembled delegates. The Galactic Council's communications network was the lifeblood of that interstellar society, and a failure of this magnitude threatened to plunge the entire galaxy into chaos. In the midst of the commotion, Aiden stepped forward, his expression grave. High Counselor, if I may. He turned to face the assembled delegates, his voice calm and measured. It appears that we're facing a critical situation that requires our immediate attention. Fortunately, we humans have been working tirelessly to develop contingency plans for just such an eventuality. Thraxel's mandibles clicked, his suspicion evident. What are you suggesting, human? Aiden smiled, but there was a hard edge to it. I'm suggesting, High Counselor, that the time has come for us to put aside our differences and work together to address this crisis. After all, the stability and security of the entire Galactic Council hangs in the balance. The Phyrexian regarded Aiden warily, his claws flexing. And what, pray tell, do you propose? Aiden's smile widened. Why? A cooperative effort, of course. We humans have been quietly preparing for such an eventuality, and we're more than willing to share our knowledge and expertise, but only if the Council is willing to listen and follow our lead. The chamber erupted in a chorus of protests, with the other delegates voicing their outrage at the very idea of ceding control to the humans. Zara watched in fascination as Aiden weathered the storm, his expression never wavering. Finally, Xraxel raised a clawed hand, silencing the uproar. "And if we refuse your offer of assistance, human?" Aiden's gaze hardened. "Then I'm afraid the consequences will be severe. The choice is yours, High Counselor. Cooperation or capitulation." The chamber fell silent, the weight of Aiden's words hanging in the air. Zara could see the conflict etched into Xraxel's features, the Thrixian's pride warring with the stark reality of the crisis at hand. In the end, it was pragmatism that won out. With a resigned sigh, Xraxel inclined his head, his mandibles clicking in a reluctant acknowledgement. "Very well, human. We will hear your proposal." Aiden's smile widened, and Zara knew, in that moment, that the balance of power within the Galactic Council had shifted irrevocably. The humans, it seemed, had finally revealed the true depth of their capabilities, and the rest of the galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson in the dangers of underestimating their former primitive counterparts. The Galactic Council chambers had never witnessed a scene quite like the one that unfolded in the wake of Aiden's startling proposal. As the human representative calmly outlined his plan to restore the crippled communications network, the assembled delegates found themselves torn between a growing sense of unease and a reluctant acknowledgement of the practicality of his approach. Zara watched the proceedings with a mixture of fascination and trepidation, her gaze alternating between Aiden's confident demeanor and the increasingly conflicted expressions of her fellow council members. The once dismissive attitude toward the humans had given way to a palpable sense of unease as the full scope of their capabilities began to dawn on the gathered species. As Aiden laid out the intricate details of his proposal, replete with a dizzying array of technical jargon and references to obscure regulatory protocols, the other delegates found themselves adrift in a sea of confusion. Zara could see the frustration etching itself into the features of the Grulerian and Vosirian representatives, their four-eyed gazes narrowing with each passing moment. "This is absurd," the Grulerian delegate finally exclaimed, his tentacles writhing in agitation. "You expect us to simply hand over control of our critical infrastructure to these primitives?" Aiden regarded the alien with a calm, almost pitying expression. "Primitives, you say? My dear friend, I think you'll find that the humans possess a far more nuanced understanding of your systems than you might have imagined." He paused, his gaze sweeping the room. "After all, who do you think has been maintaining the backbone of your communications network all this time?" The chamber erupted in a cacophony of protests, with the various delegates demanding explanations and hurling accusations. Zara watched in rapt attention as Aiden weathered the storm, his expression never wavering. "Enough." Xraxel's booming voice cut through the din, and the room fell silent. The Thrixian turned his piercing gaze toward Aiden, his mandibles clicking in a clear display of discomfort. "Explain yourself, human. What do you mean by maintaining the backbone of our communications network?" Aiden inclined his head, his lips curving into a faint smile. "High Counselor, I believe the time has come for a reckoning, if you will. You see, the humans have been quietly, and quite efficiently, ensuring the smooth operation of your precious galactic network for some time now." He paused, allowing his words to sink in. "In fact, I'd venture to say that without our efforts, your precious civilization would have ground to a halt long ago." The chamber erupted once more, but Aiden raised a hand, silencing the din. Now, let's not be hasty. After all, we humans are here to help. But as I mentioned earlier, we require your full cooperation if we are to restore the network to its former glory." Xraxel's eyes narrowed, and Zara could see the internal struggle playing out on the Thrixian's features. "And what, pray tell, do you expect in return for your assistance?" Aiden's smile widened. Why, simply the recognition that we humans deserve, both within the Galactic Council and throughout the galaxy at large. We've proven our worth time and time again, yet we've been constantly overlooked, dismissed as little more than primitives. That ends today. The Phyrexian's mandibles clicked, and Zara could sense the growing unease among the other delegates. The notion that the seemingly harmless humans had been secretly maintaining the very foundations of the Galactic Council's operations was a revelation that shook the very core of their understanding. You realize, of course, that such a demand would require a complete reevaluation of our existing power structures. Thraxel rumbled, his voice laced with a hint of resignation. Aiden nodded, his expression grave. Indeed, High Counselor, and I'm afraid that is a price the Council must be willing to pay if it wishes to see its communications network restored and its interstellar operations resumed without further disruption. The silence that followed was deafening, as the delegates grappled with the implications of Aiden's words. Zara could see the internal conflict etched into their features, the struggle between pride and pragmatism. Finally, Thraxel let out a long, weary sigh. Very well, human. We will consider your demands. Aiden's smile was one of triumph. Excellent, High Counselor. I'm sure we'll be able to come to a mutually beneficial arrangement. After all, we humans are nothing if not accommodating. As the session drew to a close, Zara found herself caught in the whirlwind of emotions that had swept through the chamber. The realization that the humans had been the unseen force behind the Galactic Council's operations was both startling and humbling, and she couldn't help but wonder what other secrets a seemingly innocuous species had been hiding. One thing was certain: the balance of power had shifted, and the galaxy would never be the same. The events that transpired in the Galactic Council chambers had sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy, shattering the long-held assumptions about the true capabilities of the human species. As the dust began to settle, Zara found herself at the center of a whirlwind of activity, tasked with navigating the delicate and often treacherous waters of interstellar diplomacy. The human delegation, led by the indomitable Aiden, had emerged from the crisis as the undisputed masters of the Galactic Council's bureaucratic labyrinth. Their meticulous adherence to protocols, combined with a deep understanding of the inner workings of the Council's systems, had effectively placed them in a position of unprecedented influence. Thraxel, the once formidable High Counselor, now found himself in the unenviable position of having to negotiate with the very species he had once dismissed as simplistic and easily managed. The Phyrexian's mandibles clicked with a palpable unease as he sat across the table from Aiden, his eyes betraying a newfound respect, and perhaps even a hint of trepidation. You must understand, Aiden, that the implications of your demands are far-reaching. Thraxel began, his voice low and measured. Granting your species the level of recognition and authority you seek would fundamentally alter the power dynamics within the Galactic Council. Aiden's expression remained impassive, his gaze unwavering. High Counselor, I believe you and your fellow delegates have already come to terms with that reality. The question now is not whether change will occur, but rather how we will shape that change to the benefit of all. Zara watched the exchange with a mix of fascination and apprehension. She had seen firsthand the depth of the humans' capabilities, and she knew that the galaxy was on the cusp of a profound transformation. And what precisely do you envision as the benefit of all? Thraxel asked, his tone laced with a hint of suspicion. Aiden leaned forward, his voice low and almost conspiratorial. Why, the continued prosperity and stability of our shared civilization, of course. But to achieve that, we must acknowledge the valuable contributions that the human species has made, and continues to make, to the overall functioning of the Galactic Council. The Phyrexian's eyes narrowed, and Zara could sense the internal struggle playing out within the High Counselor's mind. Thraxel was a proud being, one who valued the traditions and hierarchies that had defined the Galactic Council for millennia. The idea of ceding power to the once overlooked humans was undoubtedly a bitter pill to swallow. And what, precisely, are you proposing, Aiden? Thraxel asked, his voice gruff. Aiden's lips curved into a faint smile. Simply this, High Counselor. a recognition of our species' rightful place within the Council, a seat at the table, if you will, where we can contribute our unique skills and perspectives to the betterment of our shared civilization. The Phyrexian's mandibles clicked, his eyes narrowing. And what of the other member species? Surely, they will not take kindly to such a dramatic shift in the balance of power. Aiden's expression hardened, a hint of steel entering his voice. That is a concern we are prepared to address, High Counselor. After all, the humans have a vested interest in maintaining the stability and cohesion of the Galactic Council. We are not here to disrupt the established order, but to strengthen it for the benefit of all. Xraxel regarded the human representative for a long moment, his gaze searching. And what assurances can you provide that your species will not abuse this newfound influence? Aiden's smile widened, and Zara couldn't help but detect a hint of amusement in his expression. Why, High Counselor, we humans have no desire to rule over the galaxy. Our only aim is to work alongside our fellow council members, to share our knowledge and expertise, and to ensure the continued prosperity of our shared civilizations. He paused, his gaze sweeping the room. After all, we've come to appreciate the value of cooperation and mutual understanding. The days of human passivity are over. Now we seek a partnership, one built on respect and a shared vision for the future. Xraxel's mandibles clicked, and Zara could see the conflict warring within the Phyrexian's features. It was clear that the High Counselor was torn between his pride and the practical realities of the situation, a situation that had been irrevocably altered by the actions of the seemingly innocuous human delegation. Finally, with a resigned sigh, Xraxel inclined his head. Very well, Aiden. The Galactic Council will consider your proposal. But know this, any abuse of the trust we place in your species will not be tolerated. Aiden's smile widened, and Zara couldn't help but feel a sense of unease at the triumph she saw reflected in his eyes. Understood, High Counselor. I assure you, the humans will prove to be worthy partners in the continued advancement of our shared civilization. As the meeting drew to a close, Zara found herself caught in the whirlwind of activity that had erupted in the wake of the humans' bold gambit. The Galactic Council was on the cusp of a profound transformation, one that would forever alter the balance of power and the very nature of interstellar cooperation. And at the heart of it all stood the humans, their once overlooked capabilities now thrust into the spotlight, that influence poised to reshape the galaxy in ways that few could have imagined. Zara couldn't help but wonder what this new era of respect and partnership would bring. But one thing was certain, the age of human passivity had come to an end, and the galaxy would never be the same.